Hello and welcome everybody to another episode of Small Talk with Shibby, my LEC post-game interview content. I'm joined by GIANTX's very own Odoamne. Odo, obviously not the result that you wanted coming out of this week. Obviously not the result that you wanted coming out of this game. Talk to me about gelling with some of the new roster pieces within GIANTX, because you guys subbed out a couple different players. You guys have changed your roster from last split. Has it been a little bit more difficult to kind of find your guys' rhythm at the beginning of the season?
Yes and no. I feel like at the beginning we actually had pretty good synergy because it felt like when everyone came in, they were all all in for the identity and the plan that we're going for. So it didn't really feel like we were hitting any sort of resistance, but it just feels like for like couple of weeks now, I think there's still like some walls or some hurdles that we need to overcome when it comes to the sort of identity and the things we want to do in mid game shows up. And yeah, I think now is just one more week left to tackle them. But yeah, at the beginning it was pretty good. Now it seems to be not so great because I feel like there's some sort of disconnect somewhere based on how we're playing right now.
When you're kind of talking about the struggles, right? Is it kind of getting on the same page on how to like win the game, right, with leads? Because despite your guys' record, your games were the ones that you lost were very winnable at certain points, right? Like there were a lot of moments where you guys could have turned it around. You guys could have, ran with a lead, that kind of stuff. Is it just kind of like a difference in opinion on how to kind of lead the team to success? Like, is there a bunch of big voices, or is it kind of the opposite situation where nobody really knows what to do when, you guys are in kind of like a winning position?
I think it's more so, I would say, lack of inspiration right now. Because I feel like the thing that we're struggling with right now is to it feels like everyone knows how to get themselves ahead because everyone's playing their lanes quite well. But when it comes to how to get others ahead, I feel like we struggle there a little bit because today's game, I think Tristana was set up for success, but then we were not able to capitalize on it. Yesterday, Draven was set up for success, but again, we are not able to capitalize on it. It just feels like there is one step that we're missing when it comes to transitioning our early leads into snowballing other lanes. Because yeah, I think in 3 out of 4 games, I think only in the Team Heretics game, we didn't really have any ways of winning because it felt like we didn't really have clear win conditions or good win conditions. In the other games, we had clear win conditions, we had early game leads, but it just felt like when it came to transferring it and giving it to others, we were just not able to.
And based on kind of your extensive experience with working with a bunch of different teams, what would you say is kind of the hardest thing to work on? Is it the aspect of transitioning early game leads into like mid game and late game, or is it more on the aspect of getting back into games, right? Like playing the mid game, playing the late game from like even states of game? What has kind of been the harder thing to work on with the teams that you've been on specifically?
I think historically in the teams that I was with, the thing we would struggle with the most would be how to actually close out the game in late game. I wouldn't really say that mid game was an issue. For example, in Rogue we had the Rogue time where we would just throw the game at 25 minutes, and that would be considered already late game. We would be navigating the early and mid game stages very, very well, and late game would be the harder part. But right now it feels like the harder part for us is to play mid game for some reason. Well, I feel like late game, if we get in a position where we have a good situation in the game, we're able to close it out. But right now, I feel like we're failing at something that should be a little bit easier. Because yeah, in early game, if you suck, it's because yeah, maybe you're not a good enough laner or stuff like this. While you can't really you can't really teach that. You know, you can maybe band-aid it with how you put your vision and stuff like this, or making some jungle pathings or some gank timers. But yeah, I think mid game should be one of the easier ways to play, especially since our early games were just starting with such big leads. I think both yesterday and today we had huge leads at minute 10. And then when it comes to objective setups or like map play, when it comes to helping each other out, that's where we fail big time right now.
Do you think something like that can be remedied by, or maybe band-aided, let's say, by some picking like simpler to execute compositions? I mean, having even clearer, I would even argue, if that's possible, win conditions on certain lanes. Like, is this kind of a new problem for you, and it's kind of difficult to figure out as a team, and you're kind of trying a bunch of different solutions and nothing's kind of working? Like, you know, what would you suspect could be something that you could at least temporarily fix it with?
I think having maybe easier to execute team comps would be better, because yeah, it doesn't really require you to go away from the book that much. It's quite clear what the win conditions are. Yeah, I think that's one of the only band-aids that you can have, because I still, again, don't really feel like this issue should be that hard to fix, but maybe we're just hardwired to have our own opinions in this way, and we can't really find the middle ground. But yeah, I think it should be one of the band-aids that could be there is just, you know, pick a team comp that is easy to execute with clear win conditions and replicate it as much as you can in the scrim games that we have during the week, so that when certain situations happen on stage, they feel like similar situations and not like completely brand new situations where you need to think and kind of come up with a new plan on the fly under stress. If you do that during practice, then when such a situation happens on stage, you kind of have this sort of safety net where you can fall back on, because you already encountered the similar situation, during the week.
Obviously kind of being within the lower standings, I would say this is not something new for you as an individual to kind of rise back up and kind of make a late stage run, right? Obviously you did it last year. You've done it so many times before. You've been counted out as the underdog. You've been kind of counted out as a team or a player that is underrated. When it comes to kind of rallying the team back, right, and understanding like, hey, we gotta like really lock in. We really have to like get everything in order. What is the biggest thing that you've seen help teams get to that point, right? Because you've obviously done it a handful of times now.
Yeah, well, usually in a group let's say in a group that is struggling, there's always going to be someone who maybe is struggling a little bit more or a little bit less than the other one. And I think that when you're able to, or when you manage to make that sort of struggle feel more like a collective struggle instead of an individual struggle, like let's say I'm underperforming, and I'm visibly underperforming, and if one of my teammates who I would say that he's performing well comes to me and tries to fix my issues from his point of view, then it might even like make me struggle a bit more, because I would feel like this sort of pressure. But if he's able to kind of come from my point of view and make it so that he's sharing the burden, or that the whole collective is sharing the burden together, then this kind of eliminates this ego aspect where you might feel like you're being targeted as a weakling or something like this. So I think in situations like this, if you have empathy, compassion, and you're just overall a good teammate where you're able to share the burden with everyone, those are usually the things that get you out of the hole.
Final question is, I am getting that 1 minute timer. Odoamne, I think you as a top laner consistently throughout the years, ever since you've been playing on H2K, a underrated player, very, very, solid player. I think you're one of the best top laners within the West that we've had in a long time. Seeing yourself perform over the years and being on all these different teams, what has kind of kept you competing for so long? Because you've been, obviously, you semis, worlds, that kind of stuff, right? Like you've been there, you've won the LEC, you've done all that stuff. after some time, like what has kind of kept you from, not saying I'm going to hang it up, I'm going to keep competing? Is there some sort of drive within you? Is it your love for the game? Is it a bit of both? Like what has kind of kept you going all these years?
I mean, I would say it's pride, and also I feel like I have something to prove because for me, I've been called, for example, old ever since I was 21, and people told me that I'm too old to play because that was the stigma, and it's always been the stigma. So for me, I have that to prove at all times because my motivation and drive are still there, and it's also, I think it's primarily a lifestyle kind of thing where I've been in traditional sports and I've been in this competitive environment ever since I was 6 years old. So for me, it's a bit of, or like it's mostly like, is the only thing I know, is compete and be in an environment that is very, very stressful, where you get to, you get the chance to prove yourself every single day in practice and make yourself better. And then on stage, you get to play against people and you get to prove that you're, better or worse. But for me, it's mostly just the competition. I just love competing, and I love feeling like I'm better than others. And for me, that feeling never really goes away. And at the same time, I like when someone kicks my ass because it feels like, or like it shows me that there are certain areas of my gameplay where I felt like maybe I was flawless, but then there are some issues there. So yeah, there's all of this combined. Just it's a weird cocktail that kind of hooked me up to it.
Well, Odo, I hope we see you play for a very long time in the years to come.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me. I know it's tough after a loss. Do you have any final shout outs to your fans, the organization, anything like that?
Yeah, keep cheering, keep believing, because last year started even worse than now, and yeah, it's obviously disappointing. I'm more disappointed than everyone, but it's on us if we're good to bring it back together, and I'm hopeful that we will.
Thank you so much, Odo.
Thank you.
Hey everybody, thanks for watching the video. I'm hoping you guys enjoyed the content. If you did, leave a like, comment, do all that jazz. I genuinely try to respond to every single comment I see because it's always interesting to see the other opinions of people that care about League of Legends esports as much as I do. Obviously, the best way to support me is to hit that subscribe button and hit the bell for notifications on my latest uploads. If you want to see more of me and my content, I stream on Twitch 5 days a week. The link will be in the description box below. If you are into short form content, I'm also on TikTok. We talk about LPL, LCK, LEC, all the stuff over there. We talk about roster moves. So if your jam is short form content, head over to TikTok, hit the follow button there. I'm also on Twitter. So all of that stuff will be in the description box below. But other than that, thanks for watching the video and I hope to see you soon.